The mansion was silent, yet it felt unbearably loud to Eleanor Hayes. Every ticking second echoed with memories she could never escape. Sunlight poured through the tall windows, glinting off crystal chandeliers and polished marble floors, but none of it brought warmth to her heart. Wealth had given her everything, except the one thing she had lost. In her hands was the same worn poster she had looked at every day for the past 7 years. Missing. Lucas Hayes, age 6. Her fingers traced the smiling face in the photograph, the boy's dimpled grin frozen in time. Lucas had vanished during a charity fair in the city park. One moment he was holding her hand, the next he was gone. The police had searched for months. Investigators, private detectives, and endless news coverage followed, but hope slowly faded into quiet pity. Eleanor refused to let go. She folded the poster carefully and slipped it into her handbag, as she did every morning. Today was no different. She had meetings, interviews, and another donation to a children's shelter. Some called it generosity. She knew it was guilt. If she couldn't save her own child, she would save others. Outside, the city moved on without her. Drivers honked impatiently. People laughed, rushed, lived. Eleanor stepped out of her car near the shelter, her heels clicking sharply against the pavement. She paused, staring at the familiar banner above the building. Hope begins here. Inside, the shelter buzzed with activity. Children playing, volunteers talking, life unfolding in messy, beautiful ways. Eleanor smiled politely, but her eyes constantly searched faces she had memorized over the years. Boys with dark hair, boys with bright eyes, boys who might be her son. She reached into her bag and pulled out the poster again, pinning it to the community board with practiced hands. Her throat tightened as she stepped back, studying it as if it were new. That was when she felt a gentle tug on her sleeve. "Ma'am." Eleanor turned, expecting a volunteer or a staff member. Instead, she saw a thin young girl, no older than 12, standing barefoot near the doorway. Her clothes were faded, her hair tied back with a fraying ribbon. The girl's eyes held something strange, certainty mixed with fear. The girl swallowed hard and whispered the words Eleanor never expected to hear. "I know that missing child." The world seemed to tilt as Eleanor's breath caught in her chest. Everything stopped. Eleanor felt her knees weaken. For a moment, she thought she might collapse right there on the shelter floor. She stared at the girl, searching her face for signs of cruelty or imagination. Anything that would make those words less real. You know him?" Eleanor whispered, her voice breaking. "My son?" The girl nodded slowly, her fingers twisting together nervously. "I think so, ma'am. I've seen that face before." Eleanor crouched down until they were eye to eye, ignoring the curious glances around them. "Listen to me very carefully," she said, fighting to keep her voice steady. "Where did you see him?" The girl hesitated, her gaze flicking toward the door as if she might run. "I don't want to get in trouble," she murmured. "You won't," Eleanor said instantly, placing her coat around the girl's thin shoulders without thinking. "I promise, you're safe." Something in Eleanor's eyes, raw, pleading, desperate, seemed to convince her. "There was a boy," the girl began quietly. "He was scared. He cried at night and called for his mom. The people he lived with said he was found, that no one wanted him." Eleanor's heart pounded so hard it hurt. "How old was he?" she asked. "About my brother's age back then, 6, maybe 7. The girl looked at the poster again. He had the same smile. Same scar here. She pointed to her eyebrow. Eleanor's hand flew to her mouth. Lucas had fallen at the park days before he disappeared. The tiny scar above his eyebrow had haunted her dreams ever since. "Where?" Eleanor whispered. "Where was he?" The girl's voice dropped even lower. "An old apartment near the rail yards. The people there weren't nice. They made him work, clean, run errands. If he cried, they yelled." Eleanor's vision blurred with tears. Her son, her baby, alone, frightened, hurting. The thought shattered something deep inside her. She reached out and gently held the girl's hands, grounding herself. "Why are you telling me this now?" she asked. The girl swallowed. "Because I ran away from there last year and today when I saw the poster." She paused, her eyes filling. "I couldn't keep quiet anymore." Around them, the shelter noise faded. Eleanor stood slowly, a fire igniting beneath her grief. "Thank you," she said, her voice trembling but firm. "You just gave me something I thought I'd lost forever. Hope." And this time she wasn't going to let it disappear. Eleanor rose to her feet, her hands still trembling, but her eyes now held a sharp clarity that hadn't been there in years. Grief had ruled her life for so long that she almost didn't recognize this new feeling. Purpose. She turned to the shelter coordinator, a middle-aged woman who had watched the exchange from a distance, concern written across her face. "I need a private room," Eleanor said calmly, "and I need to make a few phone calls." Within minutes, they were seated in a small office at the back of the shelter. The girl perched nervously on the edge of a chair, her feet barely touching the floor. Eleanor knelt again, meeting her gaze. "What's your name?" she asked gently. "Amara," the girl replied. "Amara," Eleanor repeated, committing it to memory. "Everything you tell me is important. Can you remember the address? Or anything nearby?" Amara closed her eyes, thinking hard. There was a broken clock on a tall building, and trains passed all the time. At night, the windows shook. Eleanor nodded. Rail yards, old apartments. Her mind was already mapping the city. She pulled out her phone and dialed a number she hadn't used in years. When the voice on the other end answered, her throat tightened. "It's Eleanor Hayes," she said. "I need you. I think we have a lead." After ending the call, she reached into her handbag and placed the missing child poster on the desk between them. "Amara," she said softly, "do you know where that boy is now?" The girl's face fell. "I don't know," she admitted. "One day he was gone. They said someone took him away. I was too scared to ask." Fear tried to creep back into Eleanor's chest, but she pushed it down. This was more than she'd had in 7 years. "You were brave to speak up," Eleanor said, placing a reassuring hand on Amara's shoulder. "Braver than you know?" A knock sounded at the door. A man in a dark suit stepped inside, his expression serious but respectful. He nodded at Eleanor. "We'll start immediately," he said, quietly. Eleanor looked at Amara one last time, then back at the poster. For the first time since Lucas disappeared, the trail was no longer cold. Somewhere in the city, her son had a past she didn't know, but maybe, just maybe, a future where she would finally find him again.